You are Locked On Bulldogs Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulldogs Postcast, your home for the best Georgia Bulldogs football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is Jarvis Davis. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your first order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. And our Locked On Bulldogs Postcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Georgia Clemson 2024 started off looking like Georgia Clemson 2021, but a 28-3 roll in the second half gave Kirby Smart his 9th straight season opening win for UGA. How? We'll discuss. And they got Georgia 12 points. So we'll download on why Mr. Man should take note. But first, let's talk about how the Dogs made it 40-0 in the regular season with today's 34-3 win. Hats off to UGA, and my glasses off for UGA as well. But let's be honest, they did start off with a little bit of a sluggish start that first half, Jarvis, but the first drive of the second half really looked like the Georgia we expected to see. What changed for the Dogs on offense that allowed them to not just get it going in that drive, but to outscore Clemson 28-3 the final two quarters?
Carson Beck tightened up and Mike Bobo started dialing up the right plays, because here's the thing, we know that Clemson's defensive line was loaded coming in. I knew I had a good idea of how good they were, but oh my gosh, to be able to see it, those guys are out there moving. And number 11, Woods, oh man, he's the right dude to have that low number like that, because you can't play deep, you can't have a low number like that and not be a baller. So yeah, Woods was out there doing his thing, and I think that there was a couple of moments for me that really kind of made it stand out, because we've had conversations on Atlanta Football Party, our Bulldogs edition, coming up to talking about some of a guy like Kobe Young and what he can be in the red zone, and I feel like that was a moment for me for him to get the ball to him in the red zone for that touchdown. He kind of like really brought it home for me, because Mike Bobo was dialing up, and we know that defensive line for Clemson was run. Even those DBs, they were walking up and playing the run really heavy. So hey, in order to how do you do that? How do you change that up? You have those guys throw the football with your Heisman candidate, and for him to kind of tighten up on his passes like I feel like he did. I feel like that was the turning point for me for this offense, that Carson Beck, hey, he started finding his guys and he started looking like the accurate quarterback that we know he is, and making those big plays and big moments. And Mike Bobo started dialing up so he can loosen up that defense on.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and it wasn't a bad look in that first half, because hey, Carson Beck was 15 of 19, 126 yards, kind of an efficient day, but that's only 6.6 yards per throw, and to your point, no touchdowns. And then you look at how he ended the game, 23 of 33, 278 yards, averaging 8.5 yards per reception or per pass, and then 2 touchdowns. So like you said, it looks like he really kind of settled in and was able to really get going. And once he got going, so went the rest of that offense. But yeah, I think about, like you said, back to our Dogs edition of our football party this past Tuesday, we're talking about what was this offense going to look like, and kind of getting behind the run game. But we also talked about some things we wanted to see in that pass attack. And you mentioned it, like Kobe Young. You're talking about like someone who we really honestly didn't talk about earlier this week, but we knew, hey, we were going to need to see some things from him in order for this offense to get going. And then you look at London Humphreys. I mean, you get 2 receptions, but one of them's a touchdown. And then your long is like almost 32 yards. So you start to see guys like that. Arian Smith, the speedster, was able to do his thing as well. 5 receptions, 56 yards. So also, in addition to Carson Beck being able to do what we thought he was going to be able to do in that second half, I think for me, Jarvis, seeing the offense be able to, and particularly in the passing game, seeing things be able to be spread out like that, I think was awesome as well in that first drive, in that second half, to be able to see what we saw. But Real
Let me
talk.
let me let me add, let me add to it real
Yeah.
quick. So for me, and then put it in perspective, and I know we're gonna talk about the first half, but in that
Mhm.
first half, they had 160 total yards. In
Yes.
the first and second drive combined, 150 yards. So it just lets you know, like, hey, we got to open this thing up because we
Yeah.
can't say we're gonna ground and pound it out, try to win the 10-3 like we did back in 2021. No, that those days are over with.
Over.
Offense
Yeah.
has a Heisman candidate, a first round draft prospect in Carson Beck, and they need to
Mhm.
use him accordingly. So yeah, I think that for them to come out and make those necessary adjustments in the second half, I feel like that was the key point in this game.
Indeed. And also playing such a clean game. I mean, whenever you can go with no interceptions, that's a beautiful thing. And like you said, they ended up with a very nice overall running attack. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute with 169 yards rushing. But in order for you to get to 447 yards of total offense, which is crazy to think about, to the 188 yards that Clemson was only able to muster up, that to me is tremendous as well. And it goes what you said, Jarvis, which is, yeah, a little bit of ground and pound, establishing the run is a good thing, but you got Carson Beck under center. So you need to go ahead and take advantage of that. And I feel like we started seeing that in the second half. And now that we're seeing it, I expect that we're going to see Georgia come out a little less conservative in future because they know you just can't play the game that you played 2 or 3 seasons ago. Now, like we said, it was a little bit of a slow start, but then again, we knew that defensive front for Clemson was going to come ready for Georgia's attack. And then coupled with the fact you don't have a Trevor Etienne, you don't have Roderick Robinson. So you really have to rely on Branson Robinson, Nate Frazier, Cash Jones in that run game. First half, just 34 carries, 34 yards on 11 carries in the first half. Oh, but the second half, Jarvis. The second half, I'm sure made you smile because it was a totally different story. And a lot of it had to do with a lights out performance from one Nate Frazier, 11 carries, 83 yards, 1 touchdown. So let's start right there with Nate Frazier with a nice breakout, lights out type performance in his debut.
True freshman, big time recruit.
Right.
Shocking, right?
Right.
He comes in and plays ball, and the one thing that, my biggest concern for him coming in, I knew that more than likely he was going to get some time if Trevor Etienne did not play, right? So but when you think about a freshman running back coming in, my biggest concern, and it's a lot of coaches' concern as well, can you pass block? Can you block? Can we keep you in when you're not getting the ball on third and long when we have to pass? So those are some of the things that I feel like Kirby was concerned with. But when you turn around and put the ball in his hands, you see what he did. He was very decisive, getting upfield, and I think Branson Robinson did not do that, and that was one of the reasons why Nate Frazier got that opportunity, because in that first half, Branson Robinson just didn't look like the guy that we saw in that national championship game against TCU. So for me, I understood, hey, Nate Frazier is probably going to be that guy, if one doesn't get in the game. So to be able to see him come in and do it like he did, and he was fine in pass protection. And Kirby, even after the game, when he was asked about Nate Frazier, he was like, "Yeah, but Cash Jones was out there blocking and getting. He's got to be in our program." I was like, "Boy, Kirby is a." We're like, we got them on them yes yet. Like, because how people are Georgia fans, they'll get in on the running back real quick and real hard. So he was just like, hey, y'all calm down. Let's give the youngster the credit where it's due, and also let's give the youngster Cash Jones, the guy who's been around for some time. He was able to get a nice good run towards the end of the football game as well.
Indeed. And one more thing just before we wrap up, we talk a lot about winning on third down, and we're accustomed to seeing Georgia, especially last year, on both sides of the ball, very, very efficient in converting third downs and moving the chains on offense, and very efficient stopping other teams in their drives on third down. Didn't quite see that, at least on the offensive side of the ball today in the first half. It was that they were 1 for 6. But what did you see as far as why they were like that? We talked a little bit about it, but just want to go back to it real quick about why maybe Georgia wasn't able to convert on third downs in that first half.
I think it was seemed to be a little disconnect, with Carson Beck and his wide receivers, specifically when he threw that ball behind Dom Levitt. Now you would think that Dom Levitt is a playmaker. He's a guy that I predicted that probably going to lead this team in receiving yards this year. You wanted him to pull a ball like that down, but like it's on the quarterback, and Carson Beck has to make that throw. We expect him to make that throw. So I think that little disconnect with the wide receivers and also Kobe Young in the red zone, I feel like he probably could have at least given Young a better opportunity to catch the ball, but because that ball was not catchable at all. So I think there was some little nerves or maybe or so, something going on with Carson Beck, but obviously he got those out in the second half. So yeah, that's why I feel like there were maybe that conversion rate wasn't as where it should be with this team.
Yeah, exactly. But conversely, with the defense, especially in that first half, Georgia's defense was able to hold Clemson's defense to 1 for 6 on third down. And in the game 4 of 13, how was the defense able to still be the defense doing dog things the second half and really the game?
I think the linebacker play just shined in that first half. When you think about Raylan Wilson and just Five was just all over the place, and just being able to be that guy to make those TFLs, because that's the highlight play for linebackers, right? You have guys that can, pick the ball off, take the ball away, but my biggest thing for linebackers, guys that play downhill, if you play downhill, that means you're going to get in the backfield. So those TFLs are things that the stat I look at when evaluating linebackers, and I feel like Raylan Wilson was all of that in the first half for sure.
Let's keep Jarvis in his happy place and talk defense, because the Dogs defense held those Tigers in check. So we'll go between the hedges to download and deep dive and discuss. This episode of our Locked On Bulldogs postcast is brought to you by Factor. Now, fuel up with Factor. You can do that. Why? Because it's no prep, no mess meals. You can meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. I mean, why not? Might as well get a little jump start on the 1st of September. What are you waiting for? Which means that's the final quarter of the year, with 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week. You'll always have new flavors to explore, and you can crush your wellness goals with dietitian approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. This episode of our Locked On Bulldogs postcast is also brought to you by eBay. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And absolutely saw patience on the side of the Dogs Nation, obviously, today before this team took off the second half. But you saw all the drive you needed to see throughout the game, and passion as well. eBay Motors also has that and everything else you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items do apply. Exclusions apply as well. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, Jarvis, time to take you back to your happy place. The Dogs defense was absolutely on one today. They held Clemson scoreless that first half, only 3 points in the second half, including a stance to not allow Clemson to score a touchdown or score period in the waning minutes of the game. How was this Dogs D able to do it?
Yeah. So I gotta go with two guys, and I gotta start with the guy that's closest to the line of scrimmage. I'm going with Malachi Starks and Jalon Walker. Jalon Walker, I know that Georgia wants to move him to more of a stand-up linebacker, off-ball linebacker type position, but oh my gosh, it's so hard to ignore what this man can do when he's lined up on that at that outside linebacker spot, specifically when it's time to rush the passer. The dude is just a monster in the run game. So I don't know what Kirby's going to do. Like Kirby's going to have to make a decision. He's like, look, man, and depending on how long Mykel Williams is out, when if he's out for some time or this is going to be a nagging injury, I'm gonna have a conversation with Jalon. I was like, I know what we talked about leading up into this season, but man, you can make a lot of money being out on that line of scrimmage. I'm telling you, they're not going to ignore you if you down there rushing the passer on third and long, because Jalen 11 is just that type of dude. And then when you think about Malachi Starks, the intercept, like I don't think people understand how difficult it is to backpedal,
Yeah,
speed
that's
turn,
key. Yep.
get to full speed as quick as you possibly can, because the guy that you're going against is already running full speed. And then when the ball is in the air, turn around and find it,
Yes.
track it, go high point it, and come down with it. So hard. We get on AJ Terrell for not catching interceptions, and he's never has. And he's still making a poop ton of money being a good cornerback in the league. But oh my gosh, the dudes who can actually go and do that is next level type stuff. And I think that, and Kirby Smart said it himself after the game, he's like, that was an elite play.
Yes.
Elite, nothing less. So yeah, for Starks to be able to get off like he did, and Jalen Walker to be able to show, hey, I'm still here. I can still rush the passer, coach, if you need me to. I know where you want me to go, but hey, man, I can still do this. It just goes to show you that this Georgia defense has a chance to be elite again.
Yeah. And like you said, that versatility is so very important in what we saw with Walker, and Malachi Starks doing his best impression of one Champ Bailey. And so, it was a beautiful thing to see. And then specifically,
that's an elite comment, right? A compliment right there.
Yes.
That is
an elite compliment that so many are giving him, and deservedly so, because like you said, we watched this game on a collegiate level. We watched this game on a pro level. And yes, it is very, very difficult when someone is going full speed. They already know, that receiver already knows where that ball is supposed to end up. So they're going to their mark, if you will. The DB is trying to figure out where the mark is while pedaling backwards and trying to get back on the same speed as that receiver. And then, like you said, tracking the ball so they can get it. So what you saw out of Malachi Starks, please understand the level of difficulty for him to be able to do what he does. But speaking of, we knew that we had to have a Malachi Starks moment today. We knew we were going to have a Jalon Walker moment today, because they deserved it. And we were so looking forward to having a Mykel Williams moment, because we always do each and every Tuesday. But this is not necessarily the Mykel Williams moment that we wanted to have, because unfortunately we saw him go down with what we hope is just a tweak to the ankle, but we're going to find out more details, obviously, in the next couple of days. Kirby Smart has not spoken specifically on that yet. But with that one, Jarvis, what was your first reaction when you saw Mykel go down? And you already kind of alluded to it, but let's kind of go back to it. If for some reason he can't go, or he's out for a few weeks, we're not going to even call for the other thing, but he's out for a little while, what does that Georgia defense do to replace that kind of talent?
I mean, you don't replace it, right? You just try to, have conversation with different guys. Like, hey, man, I might need to use you here. You look at and probably look at, what one of those freshman defensive linemen like Joseph Jonah Ajayi, maybe he can move up into like that defensive end role. I know Mykel was more so an outside linebacker, but there are certain moments or points in the game where he'll slide down in that tackle spot, and have that 4-man rush, on third downs or whatever. So I think that you have those conversations with those guys and saying, hey, I might need to use you here. And I think Jalon Walker is the first guy that I'm going to go have a conversation with. And we saw it, in the game when Mykel Williams went back to the locker room to get looked at even further. So that's the kind of sucks, because you know how big a fan I am of him, and for him to kind of get tweaked like that, Phil Maffa, he got flagged for it because you're not supposed to come at an angle and chop block like that. You're supposed to come straight ahead, straight forward, but he kind of came at an angle and You kind of see how Michael's ankle got tweaked a little bit. So yeah, it's just unfortunate. As a former defensive lineman, I don't like watching that stuff. I hate seeing it because I used to be angry when somebody used to try to chop me down, which I should have been used to it. But when you see stuff like that, you just like, all right, man. I don't think Phil Maffa had any ill intentions because hey, you see a guy 6'5", 265, 270 pounds coming at you like that. Your first instinct say, hey man, I'm about to get this dude on the ground because I'm not trying to go straight up with him. So you kind of get it from that aspect of it. But it's unfortunate. But I guess, like you said, we talked about it on plenty of podcasts. They have enough depth to be able to get through it, at least for a short period of time.
Right. And we do hope that it's a short period because in addition to the depth, you kind of look at the favorable schedule, if you will, because we know next up is Tennessee Tech at Athens. And then, of course, Georgia travels to take on Kentucky. And you hope that you get a healthy Michael Williams back by the time they head up to Alabama on September 28th. But yeah, I think like if they do just have him out for a couple of weeks, they definitely have, no pun intended, the dogs to be able to cover them until that time. Well, there's this phrase, Jarvis, that says, sorry to this man. And I think the man on the other sidelines, sorry to him as of today. Maybe we'll break down what we mean in Next Up. This episode of our Locked On Bulldogs postcast is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, when it comes to mornings, I'm excited because I don't necessarily have to wake up as early as I once did have to wake up. But I will tell you this much, whenever I do need a pick-me-up, I think about 5 Hour Energy because it's the kind of pick-me-up that it doesn't matter whether it's morning, noon, or night, you can get exactly what it is that you need from 5 Hour Energy. So what else is a good deal for 5 Hour Energy? Well, to me, it's the flavors. I think it's really cool that you can get zero sugar, convenient portable size, the perfect pick-me-up, and flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and berry is my personal favorite. But try them all and see what you think. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. So guess what? You choose the flavors and it's delivered right to your door. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product and do that today, make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive $20 off your order. Now, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions, and the code is not good on subscription orders, but go to 5hourenergy.com today, get that 20% off your Locked On CFB promo code. That's what you use to get your 5 Hour Energy shots. All right, Jarvis, let's just keep it real. On the Tuesday edition of the Atlanta Football Party, our Dogs edition, we talked about this. Georgia with multiple transfers this offseason. Clemson with 0 transfers this offseason. Only Power 4 program to do it in the country. And of course, you knew it was going to be a topic of conversation today if this was a game dominated by Georgia, which it was. So for you, JD, did you see UGA's win as Exhibit A for why the portal works, and also Exhibit A for what it will look like life without the portal?
Oh, absolutely. 1000%. Because here's the thing, Kirby Smart has never been a guy to just be all in on the portal. And you know why he hasn't been? Because he has top 5 recruiting classes every year. Right. So he was like, hey man, I know how to recruit. I know how to evaluate. I know how to not only evaluate, recruit, get those guys in my door. I know how to develop. Yes. I come up with a plan for each individual that comes into Athens, who comes into those doors and say, hey, I'm really good at ball. Can you help me get better? Yes, that's what he does. And just kind of looking at this game, when you think about, I think the number was 12% of their starters came out of the transfer portal. That's a good number, because if you're talking about 88% of your guys or guys that you recruited and brought in, that makes all the sense in the world. But when you're talking about 0, I think the transfer portal was initiated in 2018. Clemson has 0 guys that have started. 0. That is scary, T, because guess what? You're going to miss on guys. Guess what? Guys are going to transfer out. And with Georgia, if I could use Georgia as an example, Ra Thomas is going to do stupid stuff to get kicked off the team, you know, and he was one of your leading wide receivers coming back for you this year. And you lose him and you don't even blink because you got London Humphreys who came from Vanderbilt. You got Kobe Young who transferred from Miami. So when you think about it from that standpoint, those are some of the things that you have to look at as a head coach, as the general manager of the team, because that's your title too. Roster construction is a big part of why you get paid. I just don't understand why Dabo Swinney is like doubling down and drawing a line like this. I feel like this is going to be his demise because you just haven't been that guy since those two quarterbacks walked out the door. And ever since then, you've just been spinning your wheels at average. He's been average.
Right. To be average, spinning his wheels to be average. I mean, you started the season at number 15, right? And it felt like we were all questioning whether or not that was too high, because this is kind of how that program has fallen off. And like you said, sad that Michael Williams could be down for a little while, but not devastated is this Dogs program, because you know that you have players. But if any one of those guys, especially on, say, Dabo Swinney's defensive front, imagine they go down, because that's the strength of your team. Then you have no.
You're not going to be able to stay in games.
Exactly.
That offense is putrid.
Exactly. You wouldn't even. This wouldn't be a conversation if it wasn't for your defensive front. But think about something that you just said as well, which is looking at the why of the way Kirby approaches it. He's not 100% bought into the transfer portal. It's just he is following the tea leaves of the times and operating accordingly. But on the same token, he knows that he can get away with 12% of his team being transfer portal players, because he does so much of a great job in recruiting and building depth through recruitment. But then you look at this little stat, and I thought this was pretty cool. 12% of your players are from the transfer portal. Guess how many points you got from transfer portal players today? 12 points. So little symmetry going on there. Yeah. But I say that to say he's also not just in the portal looking for players or accepting players just for the sake of like playing like musical chairs, if you will. It's still always going to be something that we talk about as well, which is, do you fit the culture? So it's not just that you're coming into this organization or that organization because you want to, or because you're that great of a player. He's got great players always on tap, 25, 26 already loaded. It's really all about, do you fit the culture? And also, do you bring to the table something that they feel is good enough for their program, but also they feel that they can make you better as well. So I think those pieces are important. And speaking of that, we kind of saw it on display this second half as things kind of got out of control for for Clemson. You really saw the opportunity to see the very depth that we're talking about that Georgia has on both sides of the ball. So for you today, Jarvis, who maybe impressed you where when you started the game, maybe you weren't necessarily thinking about that guy, but you're like, okay, time to shine.
Can I give a shout out another true freshman, KJ Bolden? We talked about how he was going to be a factor. And we know that, we know Kirby is not a big fan of playing freshman DBs, because it's just so much that goes into being that guy back there. It's specifically a safety, that ball hawking type safety type guy that, we believe KJ Bolden is going to be. And when you think about it from that aspect of it being paired with a guy like Malachi Starks back there, and he was out there making plays. I'm not saying the guy's going to be all world, but to have your first opportunity to play in a big time college football game in Mercedes-Benz, 70,000 plus in on national TV, like that's huge for him to go out there and get his name called quite a few times. And for him to be out there playing like that, I thought that it was really cool, because, I remember when I stepped on the field for the first time for my redshirt freshman year, I was out there like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? And I had to kind of talk to myself. You better snap out of it before you out the game. So we got to figure this thing out. So, but because I'm a nose guard. All I got to do is eat up double team blocks. I'm cool. I figure it out. But this man up here calling coverages, making checks and everything, people going in motion, like, oh my God, hey man, this is what we doing up and all that stuff. Yeah, I got to give that man. I got to give that young man some credit. Shout out to you, KJ.
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely have to give him so much love because, I mean, and it's not even about the stat line. Granted, 4 tackles, 4 solo tackles in that game. But like you said, making his presence felt, because remember, we were pontificating on when we thought he was going to get in the game, how many plays he was going to get. And we kind of figured we were going to see him, but we just didn't know how much we were going to see him and what it was going to look like when we did. And I thought on both sides, both seeing him and the impact that he had, I thought it was really, really good to get that out there in game 1. And like you said, we're talking true freshman here, and we're talking a guy in KJ Bolden where it's like, man, you're kind of salivating, hoping that he was going to become a dog, and then he becomes a dog and he delivers.
Yeah, that's the thing that you look for, and that's how you know that you get a good idea of where a guy's going to project to be, right? Because if you can come in and get his name called a few times, that lets you know that, all right, he can project to be a guy that come in and start making plays for you, game-changing plays. Because I remember when Malachi Starks came on the scene, he had a pick, and we were like, oh, this might be a dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, okay, KJ, you might be a dude as well. So I think all of those things kind of, factor into, like you said, the depth and the recruiting that Kirby does, and bringing guys in and just let you know, hey, this is a factory that we got going on, and it takes a lot to build a football factory and have that type of culture where those guys are, even though they're vying and competing against each other for playing time, they're still going out there and playing like a team.
Indeed. Well, we appreciate you guys as always for stopping by the Locked On Bulldogs postcast, making us your first listen of the postcast day. But also be sure to stop by Locked On Bulldogs for your second listen. Be sure to like and subscribe across our YouTube channel, and we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. We will see you on Tuesday on the Atlanta Football Party, the Dogs edition.